Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We're going to do something a little different today. I'm going to combine two chapters, chapters 36 and chapters 37. The reason why is because chapter 36 is really just giving the entire, or at least an in-depth genealogy list from Esau's line. So I'm not going to spend a whole read the entire list, as you can see, because it's quite lengthy. But I'm just going to kind of make some points, and then I'm going to jump into chapter 37. Genealogies serve several purposes. One, the bloodline of Jesus. That's first and foremost, to establish the bloodline of Jesus. That he is the son of David, son of Abraham, the promised seed, as God had spoke and decreed. Other genealogies, where the Jewish nation is concerned, were to establish who they were, what tribes they were, what inheritance they would be entitled to, and also where they would be entitled to those inheritance. So, if you were of the tribe of Gad, there were certain lands that you lived in that was allotted for you. So genealogies establish that. The other thing about genealogies is that they also establish the bloodlines that led away from Jesus. Jesus. So for example, you see Islam saying that their descendants, or they have the descendants from Esau. Now, I don't know if they've ever produced any evidence or any genealogies, let's say from the Prophet Muhammad or any of the other prophets of Islam, that directly lead back to Esau, who would then lead to Abraham. It's something that they said, okay? And people have even said that, but that's simply not true. There's nothing to say that Esau was ever tied to, Islam in any way, okay? In fact, which we saw before, that at the end of Isaac's life, Esau was more a follower of God, the God of Abraham, than he ever was to say make up his own religion and his own God, or that any of his descendants did that. So that's the importance of genealogy. So I'm just going to read just the first part of this, and then I'll dive right into chapter 37. And now these are the family records of Esau, that is Edom. So right off, when we travel through the Old Testament here, you're going to know that Edom is always those descendants of Esau, and you're also going to find that God has given certain lands to Esau. So now, and let me also say this too, that I'm not in any way going to pretend to be accurate in the pronunciation of some of these names. So, verse 2, Esau took his wives from the Canaanite women. Now, if you remember, when he married them, Esau, when he was coming up, showed himself to be a very profane person. And so what you see with Esau's bloodline is that they are wicked and ungodly from the Canaanites. And if you remember, Jacob, Isaac, and Isaac and Jacob were specifically commanded not to take wives from the Canaanite people. Esau did, and you're going to see this genealogy here laid out. Excuse me. So verse 2 again, Esau took his wives from the Canaanite women, Ida, daughter of Elon, and the Hittite Aholibamah, daughter of Anah, and the granddaughter of Zebinah the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael, and the sisters of Nebaioth. Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau, Basar bore Reuel, and Aholibamah bore Jeus and Jalem and Kor. These were Esau's sons who were born to him in the land of Canaan. So this would be an ungodly line. Okay, so nowhere in any way could it be traced to Jacob. Esau took his wives, sons, daughters, and all of his people of his household, as well as his herds, all of his livestock, and all of his property he had acquired in Canaan, and he went to the land away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions were too many for them to live together, and because of their herds and lands where they stayed could not support them. Now, what is interesting about this is that notice that they lived together. Now, towards the end of Jacob's life, you see that they are now living brothers together. They're not at each other's throat. In other words, Esau had completely got over his anger towards Jacob, but now they're separating. So now I'm gonna dive into chapter 37. Okay, and so this picks up the story again as Jacob is now settled into where God had called him to. And so, all right, so verse 1 says, Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan, and these are the family records of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their fathers. Now remember, the sons of Jacob are scoundrels, and we're going to see this even more. They're just some bad people. Okay, verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons, because Joseph was the son born to him in his old age, and he made a robe of many colors for him. And when his brothers saw it, that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. Now, one of the interesting things about this too, we see the family dynamics. Jacob, remember, had two wives. The one that he loved had already passed away, died in childbirth, so the youngest son is Benjamin. He really loved Rachel, but Rachel wasn't a godly person. Leah was thrust upon him, and he had to kind of live with Leah, and she felt that she knew she was unloved and unwanted. And as I told you, we're going to see yet that God will honor her the most. But then you also see that in this sibling rivalry between Leah and Rachel, you see the two slaves that produced the other sons of Jacob. And then, so now you kind of see how they feel towards one another. Now, Joseph, who's 17 at the time, and this is going to be very interesting to keep his age in mind, but you see that even today, you see certain family dynamics that's hard when you have what you could say blended families. Okay, this is one of the things. It's kind of hard to overcome some of these feelings. But Jacob's sons were just bad guys at the beginning, as we see here. We're going to see they're just going to be just bad. There's no way other way of saying it. Verse 5 says, Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers, they hated him even more. Now, I can't say if it was wise enough for Joseph to tell this dream, but he's only 17. And we don't know exactly the motive of why he's telling his brothers this. Right? In other words, and then, let's get to the dream, and then you're going to see why they hate him so. Verse 6 said, he said to them, Listen to this dream I had. And there we were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Verse 8, are you really going to reign over us? Well, we know the story, yes, but his brothers asked him, "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream and told his brothers, "Look," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the stars were bowing down to me." He told his father and his brothers, but his father rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this that you're having?" he said, or your mother and brothers and I going to come and bow down the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now it's kind of interesting that Joseph mentions his mother. His mother has already passed away, so I don't know why he is mentioning this. And as I said before, I don't know why Joseph is mentioning this to his brothers as opposed to his father. In other words, you can tell his father, but clearly he already knows that his brothers hate him. So is Joseph himself being mischievous by mentioning it to him? And if it did, it's certainly going to backfire on him. It's certainly going to backfire on him. Verse 11. Now, verse 12. Now his brother had gone to the pasture to pasture their father's flock at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers, are pasturing the flock at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them." "I'm ready," Joseph replied. Then Israel said to him, "Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing and bring word back to me," which would have been a bad report, but okay. So he went. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. He went to the valley of Shechem. And a man found him. Let's see, look at verse 15 at. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. All right. And a man found him there, wandering in the field, and he asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for my brothers," Joseph said. "Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flock?" "They've moved on from here," the man said. "I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph set out after his brothers and found them at Dothan, and they saw him in the distance before he had reached them, and they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes that dreamer." Now, they probably noticed the robe, remember the robe, the many color that Jacob had made for them. Verse 20, "Come, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we can say a vicious animal ate him. Then we will see what become of his dreams." So that's kind of interesting, right? Family dynamic here. Let's kill our brother. Now keep this in mind. This is his brother. You could say half brother, but still brother. They had the same father, but different mothers. So, and again, I'm not going to get into a whole thing of family teaching, but to me, the greatest failure with this was the lack of Joseph teaching the brothers love and all of that. But I digress. But you see their extreme ungodly nature, that they're actually talking about killing their brother. Verse 21, when Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. And he said, "Let us not take his life." Reuben also said to them, "Don't shed blood. Throw him into this pit, into the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him," intending to rescue him from their hands and return him to his father. So what's kind of interesting here is that Reuben, of course, it was not in the best light with his father, because he slept with his father's slave. Is now saying that don't kill him. We don't have to kill him. But then what's kind of interesting here is that Reuben, if you really thought that, why did you leave? He kind of left him. Why not just take the boy back? Okay, so verse 23. When Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the robe of many colors that he had on, And they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal. And they looked up, and there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Now, Israelites would be their relatives, right? Ishmaelites was Isaac's brother, which would be their uncles, were the great uncles at this time. He says their camels were carrying aromatic gum, balsam, and resin, going down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain if we kill our brothers and cover up this blood? Come, let us sell him. Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother. Wow, okay. Our own flesh. And they all agreed. And when the Mennonite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites and took Joseph to Egypt. And then when Reuben returned to the pit and saw that his brother was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy is gone. What am I going to do? So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. Then they sent the robe of many colors to their father and said, we found this. Examine it. Is this your son's robe or not? And his father recognized it. It is my son, he said. A vicious animal has devoured Joseph, and he has been torn to pieces. Verse 34, then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning. And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. An officer of Pharaoh. Officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. Certainly a lot to this here. Certainly a lot to this. The callousness of them, right? In other words, here they see their father's heartbroken. They deceive their father because they really don't know what happened. Oh, well, they know that they sold him, but they allow their father to believe he's dead. So we're talking about the depths of their depravity here, right? That they allowed their father to believe this. That they allowed their father to believe their son was dead. Of course, let me just say this, because we're going to see this further down. They're going to be bothered by this. When they threw Joseph into that pit, he screamed with anguish. Keep that in mind. I'm saying this now. They are going to refer to this many years later. It is going to be a guilt that they carry. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a guilt that they carry many years from now. So keep that in mind. All right, obviously, guys, we're going to pick this up in the next chapter. And by the way, all of this is God's plan. And out of all of this will come one of the greatest statements and outlooks that one can give. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next study. All right.